Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
Great, fantastic. Glad to have you this morning.
It's good to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Charles Bolden. I say Charles Bolden because that's my formal name. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. Got to the Naval Academy and everybody started calling me Charlie. So I go by Charlie Bolden today. I am a native of Columbia, South Carolina, C.A. Johnson High School, and then went to the Naval Academy. And I'm the product of an Omega and an AKA.
Fantastic. Now that you say that, would you have any? Would you be so kind as to go ahead and give us your tag?
Sure, I'm Gamma Nu 83 and number 2 on my line. So,
Fantastic. That's in time. Brother Bolden, thank you for joining our illustrious organization. I think your father wouldn't have it any other way. With that being said, sir, what prompted you to join the organization?
growing up in a family that was Omega through and through. In fact, it was either purple and gold or it was pink and green all over the house all the time. And my Omega was very special to my father, and I saw him and his brothers as I grew up in Columbia. But when I went to the Naval Academy, I could not join a fraternity. There were no fraternities and sororities because the Navy's attitude was they're the biggest fraternity in the world. So I was unable to join an undergraduate chapter and have that experience going through college. And when I decided to go into the Marine Corps, becoming an Omega seemed like something that would never, ever happen to me. So it was many years later when I happened to kind of fall into becoming a NASA astronaut that I had an opportunity to try to become an Omega. And it came about by meeting the late, great Dr. Ron McNair, who is a consummate brother of Omega. He was about, like my dad. He lived and breathed Omega. When I got into the astronaut office, Ron was already there because he had been one of the 3 first blacks to be selected by NASA to become an astronaut. And he was training for his first flight in 1982, 83. And he came back once from his trip to Florida where he did a lot of his training, and he said, hey, would you be interested in trying to become an Omega? The brothers down at the Kennedy Space Center are really interested in seeing if you can hack it. And I said, okay, what's involved, Ron? He said, well, you got to find a way to get down there, but I think I got it. He said, I have to go down it regularly to do some training. And since I'm not a pilot, I need a way to get there. And I know you have to get flight time. So if you could arrange to take me down on Thursdays, which is the night that your line is gonna meet and do your indoctrination and everything, then I think we can do that. And so that's what we did for the next few months. I would, on Thursdays, we'd leave Houston on Thursday morning and take him down so he could do his training, spend the night. I would go with my line brothers and we'd go through orientation and indoctrination. And then Ron was my sponsor and he took me over as member of Gamma Nu in 1983. It was incredible. It was everything that I thought it was going to be, in the brotherhood and the friendship. The work that we did in the community down in Cocoa, Florida, because that's where the chapter is. We worked in the community. I can remember having fish fries and stuff as fundraisers, and so I had the best of both worlds. I was going through my astronaut training, but also in this other world, thanks to Ron McNair and his training, having an opportunity to be with my line brothers in Cocoa.
Great, fantastic. Well, sir, with that being said, you gave the history, you gave the phenomenal works of Ron McNair, how dearly he parted brother. With that being said, the impact that he left on the world, I want to know, how did Omega affect you once you joined?
It's if you look at our cardinal principles, manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift, those were the things that my dad had taught me. He was my high school football coach. I went to school, as I said, in Columbia, South Carolina, and so I was a member of the C.A. Johnson football team. I wasn't very good, but I was good enough to be his second string quarterback. And but my dad had a lot of sayings, and my guess is a lot of them came from his experiences at Johnson C. Smith when he was going through, pledging to become an Omega in the chapter there. but he had a saying that it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. My mom and dad always talked about taking care of other people, being who you are and being true to yourself. Never, ever worrying about what's going to happen to you, but being one who looks after others. And they both really encouraged my brother and me to study all the time, so the scholarship aspect came out. I think the one thing, though, that impressed me the most about my dad and my mom was our principle of uplift, because they always took time to go back and work with kids in the community. My dad, as a football coach, was able to take students from not just C.A. Johnson, but other black schools. We were segregated at the time, so he was able to take not only his players from C.A. Johnson, but he took kids from other schools, that we played in competition, took them to the Big Ten, took them around the country so that he could help them get scholarships to continue their profession or continue into the profession of football. My mom was a librarian. She had founded the first library for black students at Waverly Elementary School in Columbia. I meet people even today who talk about my mom as a librarian. She became the first black teacher to integrate white schools, previously all white schools in Columbia. She went to Dreher High School, which was a pretty big school back then. All the governor's kids always went to Dreher High School. Members of the legislature went to Dreher High School. So she touched the lives of lots of kids who would never have had an opportunity to do that had it not been for integration. My favorite stories are about a guy by the name of Alex English. Some people who are basketball fans may remember Alex English because he was a phenomenal player for the Denver Nuggets coming out of Dreher High School. But Alex was a poet, loved to write poetry. The teachers would, they didn't help him at all because he was one of the early blacks to go to this formerly all-white high school. My mom always encouraged him to write his poetry and everything, so she was kind of an impetus to his eventually becoming a real professional writer. But the one that I remember the most is a gentleman who recently served as the chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. And if you know anything about NTSB, they're the people that do all the inspections and accident investigations for trains, airplanes, cars, anything. And the person who rose to the position of director of the National Transportation Safety Board in the United States of America, he and I lived in the same apartment complex in Washington, D.C. when my wife and I moved there to become the NASA administrator, and I did not know that. And we went back and forth on the metro from our apartment in Crystal City, Virginia, up to D.C. every day and came back on the same train. And one day I was walking across the street going to the apartment, and I felt this touch on my shoulder. And he said, "Excuse me, sir, but you don't know me." He said, but I am the chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board, and I just want to let you know that your mother is the reason I'm here. She was my librarian at Dreher High School. And I was sitting in the library one day as they were getting ready to close, and I was reading a magazine, Aviation Week in Space Technology. And Mrs. Bolden knew how much I loved aviation, and she came over and she said, Robert, his name is Robert Zumwalt. She said, I know how much you love aviation, and I notice you're not finished with the magazine. I'm not supposed to do this, but if you promise that you'll take it home and take care of it and then bring it back to the library in the morning, you can take it. And he said he couldn't believe it, but he said Mrs. Bolden was always like that to me, always kind, always trying to help me make myself better and everything else. So that was the Omega influence, even in an AKA, the uplift part of it. So I loved it, and they were big on scholarship. So always study, always work hard, never ever be afraid of failure.
Yes, sir. Understood. With that being said, I heard a few very important words, gems, if you would be precise. With that being said, in our fraternity, as it stands today, where do you see us headed as an organization?
Boy, good question, and I am proud, immensely proud today to see somebody, a brother like Representative Clyburn, who was a role model, sort of, and a mentor to me as I grew up. I did not know him personally, but he knew my dad and my mom. They were the same generation and everything. But to watch him even today as he continues to do what Omega men do, paying attention to the needs of our people, paying attention to the needs of the nation. Everywhere I go, I'm always running into another Q, and you know, we either know each other or we have heard of each other. So it fills you with pride to know that Omega men are at the helm of a lot of things going on in our country today, and reminding people of the critical importance of friendship. You know, as we say, friendship is essential to the soul. So that's what we're trying to display all the time. Just doing things that help to bring young men up. And I am always pleased and really inspired when I see our brothers who are taking leadership roles around the country. I served in, or I had the privilege of being in Rho Beta Beta for the 14 years that I was in Houston. When I went down there to be a part of the astronaut office, we were very, very active in the community. I began to work with the Sickle Cell Foundation of the Texas Gulf Coast as a result of initiatives that we were doing in the fraternity. Eventually became the president of the local chapter, and I did a lot of things I don't do anymore. I was very active back in those days, but that's the kind of thing that Omega Psi Phi does, and that's what I think we try to teach young men. Respect for women, critical part of who we are and what we do, and respect for other people.
Sir, you say. With that being said, before we move on, I want to take the opportunity, and I know this comes from the hearts of every Omega man as well as everyone that supports us. Thank you for everything that you have done and continue to do under the banner of Omega. It has been a gleaming light for many.
Thank you.
For many.
You say that. I appreciate that. I'm always somewhat embarrassed that I haven't done enough. That in fact, I was a wayward child for a number of years when I left Houston in 2009 to come up to Washington to serve as the NASA administrator for President Obama. I did not find a chapter in the DC area. I said I was going to make that transition, and I did not. And so I actually stayed away from the fraternity for a number of years until this wayward young man was, or I wish I were a young man, but until this wayward brother was found, and I now am active in Alpha Omega up in the Washington D.C. area, and it's been incredible to get back into the activities of the fraternity again. I can't keep up with all these young brothers, but they are always doing things in the D.C. area that are in keeping with the principles by which we try to live.
Yes, sir. Understood. Now that we're drawing to a close, my final question to you, and I always love to hear these words. What is your statement to the brotherhood?
I would tell particularly young or aspiring brothers to remember our cardinal values, core values, for cardinal principles, for one thing. But we always say friendship is essential to the soul, and there is nothing that will help them more than that. When I talk to Marines, or when I talk to people when I was the head of NASA, people would always say, what's your advice to somebody who wants to be successful in business? And I said one thing: take care of your people. That's essentially what we do in Omega. We try to take care of our people. And our people are not just brothers of Omega. Our people are the whole diaspora. Everybody who looks like us, who thinks like us, who came up through childhood the way that we did, and understands the trials and tribulations of being someone from an underrepresented group. Take care of your people. Take care of our people.
Brother Bolden, thank you so much for
Thank you.
continuing to let us know that we can reach for the stars. With that being said, sir, thank you again from our hearts, our minds. Thanks for guiding us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes,
so very much.
Godspeed, sir.